Welcome to Beauty in the Mess. Today we've got Cara Caulkins with Cara Caulkins Communications. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to finally get to chat together.
Yeah, so this is technically round 2. Our first episode did not record. We had literally no volume, first time ever. So trusting that wasn't meant to be, and we are meant to be. I've got goosebumps right now here today in crazy times.
Yes, this is a bit of weird times right now, but
yes,
everyone just needs to kind of stay calm. I think like the stress and anxiety not only lowers your immune system, but just like causes this unnecessary frenzy and everyone's feeling it, and it just tends to kind of get out of proportion. I think we're really impacted by the media, and we should be listening to what, our civic leaders are sharing with us and what is safe and healthy. But I think there's a certain line there that's getting a little out of hand.
Right. And just this morning, I had run to Target and Trader Joe's, and the lines were insane. In Austin, we technically have not had any cases until today. We had 2, and within hours, it's almost become a different city.
Right. Yeah. And I think, there's still a lot more to come before it gets better. But I think, this is just so new. It's something we don't know about. And so that's scary to people. And I think, probably looking back in history, this has happened before with other things, that eventually there were vaccines and medications and understanding that, so that people didn't feel this sort of like, just fear and anxiety. But until that, unfortunately, we're kind of in this weird place, and it's starting, it's affecting our business. So not just me, but the people I work with. We're lucky that a lot of the work we were doing for the South by Southwest Festival that recently was just canceled, was more so with clients that we just can do continuous work with versus bigger projects. A lot of my friends in the event production world, in the music world, have lost work now for the next 2 foreseeable months. And so it's just it's tough, and, trying to kind of band together and figure out, how to support each other and what we can be doing moving forward. But it's that trickle down effect to, our service industry and just our economy in general is something that I think, unfortunately, we're going to see play out for a bit of time here.
For a while. And really the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right? And for so many, the uncertainty is what often creates that anxiety.
So absolutely. I mean, think of anything you're scared about. It's always like, because you just don't know whether it's a new job or a relationship or a pandemic outbreak.
Exactly. And what happens is we want to control it, right? Especially as like empowered, female-driven women.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So many of my clients that I work with, as well as myself, in those moments of anxiety, we want to like hang on to what we can.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually just having a conversation with a few friends in the last week, and, it's like, and I am this person too, like when things maybe are not within my control in my personal life, like I tend to like throw myself in work, like 200%, because I can control that. Like my name's on the door. I know what we're doing. I'm leading the charge. And I have a lot of friends similarly, obviously, like attracts like, so lots of friends in the same boat. And it's been really scary because this, and like with the events canceling and sponsorship, just all of these things that it's impacting in our sort of events marketing world, now it's out of our control. So now it's like, oh gosh, like that's the one thing I was always able to control.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, most clients that I've been seeing lately have really been focused on their relationships and letting work go up until this week. And it shifted with most of them. So I can only imagine that you're not alone in that, and that a lot of women are finding that they can't focus on their work as much.
Yeah.
So what do you do in those moments?
What do you do? I know. We were in the office just earlier before I came up here, and we're just trying to kind of keep maintaining things, looking ahead to things we can, trying to help mitigate current situations, whether that's helping our clients, write messaging to their customers about, the safety and health precautions they're taking, or figuring out if we are going to host an event this weekend or next week as part of some of this programming that was scheduled. So I think it's just kind of making these hour by hour, day by day, like being a counsel, and then looking ahead to like, okay, well, let's imagine business as usual, and what are we, because in this world we are always kind of strategically planning months out, so looking at our quarter or two plans and what that looks like, and just trying to stay positive.
So it's almost requiring all of us in business as well as in our personal lives to stay more present, and of course we have to plan further out, because that is life, right? Like when you think about like life is short. At the end of the day, we don't know how long we're all going to be here, right? Yet that doesn't mean that we live life as if we won't be here tomorrow, right? We still have to live as if we're gonna grow old and die of an old age. That said, same thing in our personal lives. A lot of people, especially those that are being quarantined, are really being called to focus within themselves, and a lot of couples are being called home, or people that have been out together are quarantined together right now, which is pretty fascinating when you think about how it's affecting not only businesses but also people.
Right. Two things that kind of brought up, which is funny you said that about the social isolation.
Quarantine,
So however they're deeming it.
It's like
there's been a lot of posts that I've been reading, on social media about like kind of how to make sure like social isolation doesn't mean like emotional, mental isolation, like making sure that people, like aren't getting like super depressed and anxious and all. Like that's really interesting. I wasn't even thinking about that, or like kind of that stir crazy, or like how do you revisit your relationships now kind of when you're forced into that, and yourself.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing, yet the beauty of it is that we're all being called to it.
Right.
And, that is the beauty of social media and being able to connect online, because, for example, in my own private practice, I have an office, and gradually over, I've been in business for 10 years, so gradually over, I'd say the last 2 years, more and more clients are wanting to do phone sessions rather than drive to the office, whether they're in Austin or, obviously it's going to be phone if they're not in Austin, but even those in Austin are like wanting to do phone sessions, and it's been really great because they're able to be in their own space and go through their emotions and transformations in their own space, and maybe not feel as vulnerable as in office. And then, the online courses have become more prevalent. So I almost wonder if this is going to start shifting more things to become available online, such as personal growth or even online events. Right.
Well, that's even stuff that's happening with like South by, and even brands that are trying to kind of still offer some of the something what they were going to do. I know we've been talking to a lot of people that are figuring that out right now, and what that looks like.
Do you know of any that have decided what that
looks like? Nothing online? That I can like publicly yet, but I know that happening. People are, and I imagine that South by like officially is, I think maybe potentially trying to put content and speaking, online. I would assume, I don't know exactly yet. When you said about looking ahead or staying present, like having that as part of this whole, time where we are kind of, let's take a breath, and now we are living, minute by minute, day by day, things are changing so rapidly. It's actually been really interesting, and that you said that, because one of the things that like gives me anxiety, or just has been sort of a how do I balance this in my life, is I feel like, especially for my job and just the nature of the business, that I'm always looking, a month ahead, 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead. And I'm like, I sometimes am like, I'm like a little sad. I'm not feel like I'm always living presently. And like, am I missing out on what's happening right now? Whether that's work related or not. But like maybe, and I feel like maybe because I always am feeling like I'm just constantly looking ahead, that time goes by so fast. And that, you know, maybe I'm not personally living presently. So that was really interesting that you said that.
I just got goosebumps that you said that. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because I can imagine so many people, when you say that, identify. Because as we said, it gets so easy to get caught up in business, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to focus on work or really just the busyness of life.
Right.
Then
like you have this plan, you know you have this in 2 months, or you're looking ahead to this season, or you know whatever it is. It's like we're constantly just like that, and it's how do you stop and like, whoa, like can we just take a minute and like what is happening now? Because I do sometimes feel like I miss out on things because I'm not here in the moment.
Yeah, and it's valid. You know, there's two perspectives on it. Ultimately, there's no mistakes.
Right.
And everything you experience is what you're meant to experience. Where on the flip side of it is when we aren't present, we are missing things. There's things that can go past us that we miss because we're just not here.
Right. Opportunities, people. I think that's like what I'm like.
Yeah, your soulmate could be standing next to you in the grocery line at
and
Target.
You're like on my phone because I'm dealing with something, and you know, whatever. But.
Yeah, it's so true. And you know, I've actually learned that over my own business, of when I do attempt to plan in my business, everything will start to fall apart. So it's been interesting to navigate that, because I have found in the last 10 years that if I'm not present and in flow, then I'm not attracting clients and I'm not able to truly authentically guide people through their own journeys as I can present, right? So a huge part of the work that I do is actually staying centered and present myself.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it's been a journey in and of itself, because in the beginning I was in my head thinking, no, I have to do all this. And it was actually ironically only a few weeks ago when I first heard Sarah Blakely speak at Tony Robbins on how she founded Spanx that I felt like almost validation and free and like extra freedom of operating my business that way. And hearing her story, I don't know if you've heard it, but
she always makes me feel better about my life.
Yes,
I don't know what it is about her, but and her story and her both her work and personal life. Like I love when she talks about like, I was older when I met my husband. I still had a family. Like calm down, everyone. You know, like I'm like, okay,
because it's more flow and intuition, and I feel that she's really one of the first billionaire entrepreneurs that is speaking out about it, like in a very powerful way. And I so appreciated that, because the more that we begin to operate from that space, from that like feminine fluid energy, we do become more present and attract more. Again, that doesn't mean that we don't have to plan.
Right.
That means that our planning is different, and we can actually, you know, I don't know if you've read Woman Code, but there's actually a whole book on the cycles that we have as women, and how we can actually plan our workflow for the cycles of our own internal systems. So that's something that I find fascinating, something I've experimented with, but you know, I think that I've kind of already found my own tune with things and flow. So I found some of it to be helpful, and other times I just had to listen and trust myself. So I think that there's like a whole new opening here of exploration for presence and balance and navigating life and business in a different way.
Yeah. Well, we're all gonna see. But agree. Totally. Yeah.
So if you were just starting your business, what would you now look back and tell that beginning female entrepreneur at that time?
Well, I mean, things sort of progressed or have continued to, for the most part, up until now, pretty organically, and just like, I didn't really have a intention at the beginning to start my own business, and It just kind of happened.
So tell us that story for those that don't know.
Well, I was looking for a job basically, and just wasn't finding the right thing. Wanted to be here in Austin, had been working remotely here, but for something outside of Austin, and realized like if I really wanted to make this my home, I needed to kind of find my community, whatever. And in turn, like I thought working for something here would just connect me more into the city, and I didn't even have sort of my friend group or anything like that yet. And so as I, looked for opportunities, found potential opportunities, there just wasn't the right thing. So I started freelancing and picking up, just kind of meeting people, networking, just sort of doing what I knew how to do in terms of like building my relationships. Definitely like public relations. Obviously, relations is literally in the title. It's like, I always say like I'm in the business of relationships. Like that's so much of like just what we do.
I love that.
And so things just kind of happened where I was, connecting to some really amazing people, and started to meet people that potentially, could refer me to projects or needed me for job type, for this type of work. And it just kind of grew, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't the like in between while I find the next job. Maybe this like is my next job. And just kind of went with it, and was sort of like, okay, well, I guess I'll try to like work for myself and see how it goes, and give it a year. And if it, totally sucks, or I can't pay my rent, then I'll get a job. And it just sort of, it just kind of happened. And then just sort of really happened.
And how many years ago was that?
So that was like 4 years ago. Yeah. And then things have like, flow. Definitely. I mean, things, I think the flow could be improved constantly, as you know.
Always.
Lots of, not always a good balance of everything. But I do enjoy what I do, and I've met so many amazing people, and sort of found my, various crews, squads or whatnot through what I do for the most part, which is really great.
So you're kind of getting the work and play.
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of it goes hand in hand, which is awesome. Like, especially just being in, I don't know if I would have done this anywhere else, but Austin. And like, I just have found Austin to be such like a supportive community too for like women entrepreneurs. I mean, I have some amazing, talented male colleagues and friends as well, but like, I mean, I'll just, get dinner or drinks with girlfriends, and we'll talk about work, but in like a way of like, how can we help each other, and like what's what's going on with everyone, and like what can we brainstorm to do together, and things like that, where it's like I like never had done stuff like that before, or like had that as part of my friendships. So that's really cool, I think.
Yeah, the female entrepreneurial spirit here, I think, is strong and supportive, as well as the local business support.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing of what's even happening this week, and sort of in light of all of this, fear and anxiety, there's this underlying message of like, we still want to help and support like our city and each other. And, whether that is still maybe going out to your favorite bar for a drink or to see a show, depending on how comfortable you are with that, or if things are happening still, I think that's going to be a really big deal for the next few weeks. But Austin's so great like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say with having your work and play? How do you find that balance in your personal relationships?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it goes hand in hand, just like with some of my friendships intertwine with professional things too. And a lot of what I get to do, luckily, is social as part of work in terms of like events and going out to things. But I think, I've gone in waves of like, in terms of dating or in terms of prioritizing my personal life. So at sometimes, I definitely don't do that as much as I probably could. And I think that it's just sort of depend on like where I'm at with that and if I'm allowing that to happen and to balance that. I mean, when I have found someone I wanted to date, like I find the time to do both, obviously, but sometimes it's just...
And so what happens when you're not making the time?
When I'm not making the time, then I'm not dating anyone.
And
so I guess,
working?
I guess that's the lesson there. But
that truly is becoming more and more prevalent, where as female entrepreneurs truly are becoming more, it's almost becoming a fad in a sense.
Yeah. And I don't want to be like, I don't want to be married to my business or my work and only that. Like I think just in general in life, like I've always done so many things, and this is not even like the only, I've done different careers. I mean, similar industries, but like I don't want to just only be known for one thing or that to be just my life. So I know that that's not, it's just a matter of sometimes like opening up to it or making the priority for it.
What would you say to other women that are facing that same challenge?
I mean, I think that in the times where I think it's sometimes about like, again, that whole going back to the idea of like living presently and opening to what's around you, because sometimes I've met some like really amazing people that have come into my life organically just because like I've actually been, my eyes are open and I'm like there somewhere where I am meeting somebody that is then, crossing my path for a reason. I think that it's also like when you're looking too hard for those things, I don't think
typically.
No, not at all. I mean, I think we have used really great tools for people that are really busy to find, ways to date, whether that's an online app or, other means of social media. But so I think there are tools now for what people that are super busy and not necessarily wanting to go out to a bar every weekend or whatever it is, or how do you meet people. But I think I've also been really challenging myself to say yes to things, even if I like don't want to do it always, whether that's maybe getting invited to somewhere that I don't know many people, or to something that like I wouldn't normally do, or like a last minute invites, like a friend inviting me to go to like an event that I wasn't planning to go to, and it was like, okay, well, I had plans and I was gonna go to the gym and then like I finish up this, whatever press release that I really need to do. But you know what? No, I'm going to go and I will figure out the rest in the morning. Like I think it's about like giving yourself that like freedom. And flexibility if you can. I think if you are like single and don't have dependent things around you, then you have the gift of that and you should use that and not
because it's
stay
easy,
closed
right.
off.
It's easy to stay closed and it's easy to say no.
Right.
And whenever we do that, we do not only close ourselves off, but we begin more of that isolation, only focusing on our work once again.
Right. No, totally.
Right?
I mean,
it's easy to get in that cycle.
And that's right. And I see myself do that a lot. And then it's like, okay, kind of shift. Don't let yourself get sort of in that like silo, or whatever would be the right word maybe, of like, that's all that I'm going to be focused on right now.
Yeah. I love that. What are some of your biggest challenges in your life or business, and how do you overcome them?
Well, I think, just financially, like running your own business is like always challenging. I'm also like more of a creative. I'm not really a business person. So like those things are really hard for me to, like, I have actually just hired someone to help me with like, how do I make more money? Basically, in layman's terms, in my terms, because I'm like, I don't understand all of these balance sheets and P&L.
That's great.
It's just because
you're reaching out for support.
Yeah, I think, and it's hard too. I mean, in this type of an industry, like I don't have necessarily set business for years at a time. Maybe it's 3-month contracts, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year. Like and so to have employees and to have people that rely and to pay rent for offices and just, to run a business, you have to, have a certain like baseline and just kind of right. And so that's always just like scary and challenging.
Right. So how do you get through that?
I think it's about being smart and not taking on more than you can handle, like in terms of what you're, paying out. And then sometimes it's asking for help, whether maybe it's a small business loan from your bank, or maybe it's an expert who can help you with your forecasting and budgeting, and I think I recognized really early on that like the numbers business side, like the bookkeeping stuff, like that was going to take me so much longer. Like I had to value the value of my hour of time versus paying someone for that hour. And even when I was like, didn't have employees, I had someone doing my books because I just knew that was not something that like I was prepared to invest my time in, and that just made sense. So.
I love that. Any other thoughts?
I think it's just like overall, like I think you asked even in the beginning, like what would you tell your former self or your earlier self? I think it's like really when I like even meet with like college kids or like speak at things, like it's so much about, like not having so much pressure on yourself or like these expectations. Like I think it's amazing to have expectations, like goals you want to achieve. But like not to beat yourself up over it or to think that you have to be what that looks like at this time in your life and at this age. Like, are you kidding? Like, did I ever think that I would be like single without children, like owning a business at 36 years old? Like, probably not. But like I am. And like then you set new goals and expectations. And so I think that that's like a big thing that I don't think I saw as much growing up, that I think hopefully girls and women now will see that as like these sort of, there's not this like box you have to fit into, and there are role models you can see that are doing those things differently, and that's okay.
I love that. And what I love about you is that you are so much in your creativity and intuition and heart, and I think you live that example for people that radiates around you, your staff, our city, and it's really beautiful to see you continuing to grow and flourish in that space as a creative, female, heart-centered entrepreneur.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Love talking to you always.
I know. Me too.
Thanks for joining us on Beauty and the Mess. Feel free to visit Robin on Instagram at Robin_Emmerich. Keep on living your beautiful life and embrace the mess.